Is that all?
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. I am deeply, deeply honored and grateful for this award. It is humbling. It is awesome. And I just can't tell you how much I appreciate it, and thank you all. Thank the board members. I thank my family. What I was able to do, Jessica, you helped me do. You didn't complain about all the evenings and the weekends in Los Angeles. Thank you to my family, my closest friends, my staff at this table, my loved ones, my closest colleagues, my loved ones, and my colleagues in this room. Thank you so much. It is really humbling. Tonight, I want to talk to you about how one person can make a difference in the world, at least in our immediate world, the world around us. And if any one of us can make that difference, everyone can. I know we all can. Before I talk about how this came about for me, I want to talk a little bit about ACFLS, what it has meant to me, and some of the fun times I've had with wonderful, wonderful people. ACFLS is the people. We do wonderful educational programs, but it's you. I'm quite sure that I'm the only person who associates ACFLS with Miatas, Justice Pinelli, and the Queen Mary. And I'm reverbing everywhere. Okay. So those are three unusual things. Without ACFLS, I wouldn't have been able to test drive Alan Tannenbaum's Miata when none were available to test drive. And shortly thereafter, I was the proud owner of a blue Miata. Without ACFLS, I wouldn't have been able to secure Supreme Court Justice Edward Pinelli as our lead panelist at one of my many state bar programs and spring seminars that I put on for ACFLS. Instead, I would have had to settle for my memory of how, when I last saw Justice Pinelli, he easily ran past me in 90-degree weather up this steep hill in Baja, Mexico. And you have to understand, Justice Pinelli was at least 30 years older than I was when he beat me up that hill. So I had to rope him into talking to us at the state bar for ACFLS so I could at least get some commonality with him. Without ACFLS state bar programs, Mary Jo Hart and I would not have been in Long Beach crashing the Tall Club party on the Queen Mary. Now, Mary Jo and I are both 5'8". We were at least a head shorter than everyone else at that party. And without ACFLS, Joan and I would not have been purchasing this incredible perfume that I have on tonight that we got in Las Vegas when we were fooling around at the ACFLS Spring Seminar in Las Vegas. But mostly without ACFLS, I would have not had a forum for alternative dispute resolutions. I would have not had a forum to promote it across the state of California. The long journey to make mediation and alternative dispute resolution not only an acceptable alternative, but finally the preferred alternative for resolving family dissolutions began back in 1977. It probably began before that. I knew then as a second-year law student this was the way to go. I started at what I now realize to be the very top with Justice Donald B. King. Now, I told him I was going to tell this story tonight and take his name in vain, and he decided he didn't want to hear it, so no, he couldn't come. But what I did is I clerked for him in 1977, and I told him, we need to do mediation, we need to do it with property, we need to do it with support. And he said, we can do it for custody, and as you know, he was a great advocate of custody mediation, but he wasn't sure we could do it for property. So I stood my ground, and I told him it would work just as well, and then set about proving it with my subsequent devotion to mediation. It's been a pattern of mine, as you'll see as we go on, that anytime someone says, no, I'm going to find a way to do it if I can. Sandy called it tenacity, or she told me she was going to call it tenacity. I call it perseverance. In my early days at ACFLS, way back in the early 80s, local family law trial lawyers were very skeptical some of you might even still be in this room, about my enthusiasm about mediation and how it could bring about the best overall resolution for many families. I remember pointed questions and much skepticism from my fellow specialists voiced at our ACFLS dinners at Alfred's. There was always the notion people needed protection, especially since one party was more powerful than the other. I've been steadfast in my belief that through listening carefully with an open heart, we can instill confidence in people, even at the worst times in their lives, to make good choices for themselves and their children. We can strive to bring out the best in our clients instead of the worst. How does it come about that someone decides to change the way law has been practiced forever? It comes from the deep desire to right a wrong, to change what feels unfair, undignified, and untenable. Towards the very end of his life, my father said he always believed that we had a responsibility to give back to the world. We had to do something to help make it a better place. Perhaps inadvertently, he instilled this value in me from an early age. But for many years, I thought it came from my rebellion against my parents, the system, and their repressive values. The biggest hurdle in my family was that women were to be seen and not heard. Actually, you could say my parents were the first party of no. So what does a bright girl do when faced with no all the time? Learn to go for it. Follow the dream. Follow the standards set for the boys in the family. So from an early age, I learned to fight. Fight for what I wanted to do with my own life. Fight for recognition, and fight for the underdog to bring a semblance of fairness to the world around me. I always knew from 8th grade that I wanted to be both a lawyer and a psychologist. I just didn't realize law school was out of reach for most women. I had to wait a while. I had to wait to get in until the Vietnam War opened up enough spaces for more women to get in. Now look at us, 35 years later. At least we're half the profession and more than half of the women family lawyers in this room. Anyway, while I was waiting, I became a drug crisis counselor in a blue-collar community, running a 24-hour crisis center for teens in trouble. I watched the family dynamics and realized to make an impact on the deterioration of these families, they needed counseling and legal services together in one place. They needed child support and someone to handle the probation and juvenile services. So I got my marriage and family therapy license, and I trained other counselors. When I entered law school, I was intent on opening a nonprofit center to provide full services for families. However, in 1975, when I went to law school, I was promptly told that lawyers could not practice together with non-lawyer professionals. It was against the state bar rules. Not taking no for an answer, I found a way around it. I found a few other like-minded therapists and attorneys, and we formed Family Law Counseling Associates to develop what has now become the field of family and divorce mediation. Offering family law counseling services, we started back in 1977. In 1978, O.J. Kugler published the very first book in the United States about divorce mediation called Structured Mediation. We thought we were onto something a little better and more flexible. I worked with others in teams of 2, a therapist and an attorney, so we could offer a wider range of services for our divorcing couples. I was a therapist at that point. I became a real counselor at law. When I graduated law school, people were still called counselors at law. I am still a counselor at law. Since the late 1970s, I've been mediating alone using both my skills as a therapist and an attorney to make a divorce process saner and more balanced. Over the last 34 years, I've helped hundreds and maybe even 1,000 families, always with an eye on, first and foremost, how do we protect the children? I put the emphasis on the family part of family law. I must have gotten it right more often than not, as Jose's mother, Marion, wherever you are, Jose, has so eloquently stated. When Marion called me a few years ago to refer Jose, I thought how blessed I was to have someone like Marion remember what I did for her, and how special and dear it was that she trusted me with her son and her grandchildren. She told me she felt blessed that I guided her through tough times and really cared about her and her children's welfare. Lest anyone think I was only about helping moms, Jose's father and Marion's former husband is home watching the grandchildren tonight so that Jose could be here reading Marion's words. We can make a huge impact on how families go forward after divorces. I joined the ACFLS board in 1989 when Sandy appointed me. As I told you when you retired, Sandy, you forgot to tell me when I was supposed to retire, so I stayed on the board 21 years. While this award is humbling, and I am deeply grateful, I hope we all leave here knowing it was a two-way street. I provided ACFLS and the Family Law Bar years of service helping this organization provide the highest quality education programs for its members. And in return, ACFLS has given me the support, the people, the encouragement, and the best education to continue on my path to change the world of dissolving families, one family at a time. Thank you, ACFLS, from the bottom of my heart. Thank my friends, my family, my staff, my clients for making this all happen. Thank you.
You're adoring public.